Have you ever been sitting having coffee with a friend or maybe meeting with a client and they say something to you like, gosh, I'm so frustrated. I really want to be working on the business instead of in the business. In this video, I'm going to let you know how to get that done and why it's so hard.
The key is to get started.
Our little graphic into this thing says the key is to get started. And if you're trying to figure out how to work on the business instead of in the business, it's the key. You just got to get started. Let me show you first why it's hard so I can show you how to do it. A business is a defined space. This is your business. And you started the thing and it's grown to this capacity. And there's all kinds of things going on inside the business that you've had to work really, really hard to accomplish. Things like a sales process, something to do with getting a product developed and to market. There's an operations process, administration, all the admin work, maybe finance, actually definitely finance. And these are all processes that you've had to, in some way, get good at. And you've had to get them all working together. And that can take a few years to actually figure out how to get that done. And by the time it's done, you're really good at it. And it took a ton of work. And you've dedicated yourself to it. You are now an expert, at least an expert at running your business. And because of that, you often feel confident. But the thing is, you're probably working a lot of hours. And there comes a point in the journey when you're like, I wish I could work on the business instead of in the business. And what I find is when people use that phrase, it's because they don't necessarily know how to accomplish that. And sometimes it's because they don't even know what it is. They've read about it. They hear people talk about it. They've learned this phrase, this code, and they know it's somehow right. And so they'll start to say it because it sounds right, but they don't know how to do it. And they don't know what it is. One of the byproducts of building the business in the first few years and getting up and running is you become this expert inside the business. You're very confident that you can make it work, and it becomes scary to work on the business because in the business is inside the part that you're actually good at, but on the business is to leave that, to cross the threshold of the boundary of the business and what isn't the business and get outside of it, on instead of in. And it turns out it's the difference between the known world and the unknown world. And the unknown world is always scary. It's a place where we experience fear. And so it's easier just to stay inside the business feeling confident. But you can only feel confident in the thing that is known. And so most of us are confident in the business, and we want to feel confident working on the business. But you can't, because you haven't done it before. It's the unknown. And so this process of thinking about letting go triggers a fear. You're actually turning over the running of the business to someone else who may not yet be as good at it as you are. And that's kind of scary. But you weren't as good at it as you are now during the process where you became an expert. And if you ever want to make room for others to become experts, if you ever want to be able to leave the business in the hands of others and get outside the business, you're going to have to let somebody else become the expert. And it activates something inside of us. I'm letting go. I'm losing control. It's actually true. You are losing some control. That's what it means to move out of the way. But let me share something with you. A person who moves out into this unknown is expanding the size of their business. When you're moving from in to on, what you're doing is you're moving out here into the yet to be defined portion of your business, and you're starting to develop this space. It's not a space that isn't your business anymore. It's the space that you're developing your business into. The difference between in and on is not in and out. It's in and future, in and the space the business is about to hold. And in the end, when you've done your work and your job, your business will grow. And then you get to work on the business instead of in the business, which means you have to do this process again. And you have to come out here and imagine the business moving in new directions. And then if you do this work well, you will grow the size of your business. And this process continues on and on for as long as you want to keep growing your business. The key to working in instead of on your business is creating more space for your business to move into. But it's a different role than what you originally were doing when the business was this big. This is a new job for you. It's a new role for you. And you need to become a new expert in this space so that you can then once again turn it over to somebody else. A business leader in this way is creating new space for their people to grow into. They're beginning to see the future and the things the business could be. And you know what? Your people need you to do that. That's necessary to create new space for the people who are in your business to grow and expand and develop their new skills and grow in their careers. Otherwise, many of them will actually just work out of your business. So the reason people struggle with this is fear. But that's not new. We all struggle with that. So this has probably stirred an intrigue in you, a thought like, ooh, I get what you're talking about. But you might be left with a question like, yeah, but how do I do that? Or what does that actually mean? Here's what it means. I want you to schedule in 3 months. Give yourself 3 months to set this up. I want you to schedule 2 weeks off. You may never have had a 2-week vacation. Maybe it's been years since you had a 2-week vacation. You probably need it. When you come back, I want you to pay attention to 2 things. Number 1, what worked? What was maintained in your absence? In fact, what worked so well it may have even improved in your absence. Those are the areas where you're stifling the business. They don't need you anymore. Get out of their way. Number 2, I want you to pay attention to what broke. Those are the areas that are some weak links. They need your attention. And then I want you to go inside the problem and don't blame the people. Don't blame whoever's there necessarily. Just figure out what broke and then do the work with the team to fix it and correct it. Then I want you to do the same thing again. 3 to 6 months later, I want you to go away for 2 weeks. This time I want you to come back and pay attention to what worked in your absence and what broke. And eventually you'll figure out that nothing's breaking. That's a business that you can get out of the way of. Then I want you to give yourself a new job. Give yourself a new job. Give your job, your current job, write down everything you're doing that someone else could do and give it away. Give it to everybody else. And then I want you to give yourself a new job. If you can't figure out what that new job might be, hire a coach. We'll help. But figure out what your new job is, because your new job is what you're calling working on the business. You might have heard it said that it's that great leaders know how to work themselves out of a job. And that's often where that phrase ends. That's not what great leaders do. What great leaders do is work themselves out of a job and into a new job. And that's actually the harder part. When you're working on the business instead of in the business, you're not leaving the business behind. You're not letting it run itself. It does not become passive income. It might take less amounts of your time, but there's still a role for you. Here's another very practical thing that I want you to do inventory of. If you're working in a company and you've been the expert and all roads lead to you, and now you're trying to work on instead of in the business, one of the challenges might be that you haven't taken the time to develop leadership within your company. You might have created a company that is absolutely dependent on you. If you did that, that's okay. You're just never going to get out of that position. So one of the things that we do a lot with companies is we help them develop their leaders so they can elevate their leaders. We help them build the competency of the human side of leadership inside their company, so that they can start to give their job to them. That may take a little time to accomplish, but it won't take as much time as never doing it. And if you want to get out of the role you're in and into a new role, having qualified, capable, competent people who can elevate with you is necessary. So if you find yourself having a leadership vacuum beneath you, it's actually your fault. You did that. But here's the good news. You can fix it, and we can help. And if you'd like that kind of help, just swing over to iconcoaching.com. That's IKON coaching.com. And we'll explain and you can book a meeting. But just know that that is a very common problem. It can feel like you're stuck, but you're not. There's a path out. But the key is to get started.